Imagine you're invited to a family lunch. It's a Saturday in the middle of winter, and you're sitting at a warm table with wine, laughter, and a home-cooked meal. It's the kind of gathering you've been to dozens of times before. You leave feeling full, happy, and safe. But within hours, you're in the hospital. Your body is shutting down. Doctors scramble to keep you alive. And before the week is over, 3 of the people who shared that same lunch are gone. This is the true story of Erin Patterson, how her quiet life, a complicated marriage, and one deadly meal came together to create one of Australia's most shocking murder cases. Erin Trudy Scudder was born on September 3rd, 1974 in Melbourne's Glen Waverley. Her parents were well educated. Her mother taught literature at Monash University, and her father worked in government service. From the outside, it looks like a stable, middle-class upbringing, but Erin later described her home life as cold and emotionally distant. She recalled her mother weighing her every week, criticizing her body, and fostering a deep insecurity about her weight and appearance. Those habits followed her through adolescence and adulthood, shaping her self-esteem and relationships. Erin was academically inclined, starting out studying science at the University of Melbourne before switching to accounting. She later trained as an air traffic controller, graduating in 2001. Her early career was scattered. She worked for Air Services Australia, had a stint with the RSPCA, and by 2004 was living and working in Monash. Around that time, she met Simon Patterson, an engineer and part-time basketball coach who would later become her husband. Erin and Simon's relationship grew quickly, and they were married in June 2007. Before their wedding, Erin had undergone a major personal transformation. Having been raised without religion, she experienced a conversion to Christianity after attending a service led by Pastor Ian Wilkinson, who would later become a central figure in the case. She credited the church with helping her through periods of depression and anxiety, and that shared faith became a cornerstone of her early relationship with Simon. After their wedding, the couple moved to Western Australia, where Erin opened a second-hand bookshop while Simon found local engineering work. Their son was born in 2009 after a traumatic birth that required an emergency C-section and left Erin physically and emotionally shaken. She struggled with postnatal anxiety and described feeling disconnected from her new role as a mother. Their daughter was born in 2014, and by that time, their marriage had already begun to fracture. Between 2009 and 2015, Erin and Simon separated multiple times. Friends described their relationship as functional but strained, lacking the warmth and closeness they once had. By 2022, financial tensions made things worse. Simon filed his tax return as a single man, which cut Erin off from certain government benefits and caused resentment between them. Despite the tension, Erin had been generous with Simon's family over the years. She inherited around $2 million from her grandmother, some of which she used to help Simon's siblings and invest in properties. She was particularly close to Simon's father, Don, sharing long conversations and common interests. But by 2023, those relationships were strained. Erin felt Simon's parents were pulling away from her, and she expressed frustration to friends and in messages about feeling isolated from the Patterson family circle. By July 2023, Erin and Simon were living apart but continued to co-parent their 2 children. They even took family vacations together for the sake of their kids, but their relationship had largely become a formality. On July 29, 2023, Erin planned a lunch at her Leongatha home. She invited Don and Gail Patterson, both 70 years old, along with Gail's sister, Heather Wilkinson, 66, and Heather's husband, Ian Wilkinson, 68. Simon was invited, but declined to come. Erin's 2 children were not present that day. She had told people she wanted to discuss private health issues with her in-laws, at one point even suggesting she had a cancer diagnosis, a claim prosecutors later said was fabricated to keep her kids away from the table. The meal Erin served was individual beef Wellingtons, each containing a mushroom duxelles inside the pastry. Erin ate with her guests, but used a different plate than everyone else. Hers was orange tan, while the others ate from white plates. This detail would later become one of the prosecution's most significant points in court. The lunch ended without incident, but by that evening, all 4 guests were violently ill. They were rushed to the hospital with severe vomiting, dehydration, and eventually liver and kidney failure. Within the week, 3 of them, Heather, Gail, and Dawn, were dead. Ian Wilkinson survived only after spending nearly 2 months in the hospital, enduring multiple organ support and a liver transplant. First, authorities treated it as a possible foraging accident. Death cap mushrooms, the most lethal fungi on Earth, are responsible for the majority of mushroom deaths worldwide. But this case didn't look like a typical accident. The victims weren't foragers. The meal wasn't a wild stew thrown together by chance. It was carefully prepared, plated individually, and served in a controlled home environment. Suspicion turned to Erin almost immediately. In the days following the lunch, Erin herself reported mild symptoms and went briefly to Leongatha Hospital. She checked in but left within minutes. Surveillance footage later showed her entering a service station bathroom and then buying snacks, which prosecutors later said suggested she was not as sick as she claimed. Investigators tested leftover food from the lunch and confirmed the presence of beta-amanitin, the deadly toxin produced by death cap mushrooms. They found the same toxin in the victims' blood and urine. From there, they began building their case. Police recovered a Sunbeam food dehydrator Erin had purchased in April 2023. It had been discarded at a landfill, but forensic testing found traces of death cap mushrooms inside and Erin's fingerprints on the device. When first questioned, Erin denied ever owning such a dehydrator. Her digital data painted an even more damning picture. Photos on her phone showed death cap mushrooms being weighed on a scale. GPS data placed her near areas known for death cap growth, and records showed she had wiped her main phone and swapped SIM cards after the incident, handing over only a backup device to investigators. When combined with other details, the different colored plate, her rapid recovery, the fabricated cancer claim to keep her children away, detectives concluded this wasn't a case of bad luck. It was deliberate. The trial began on April 29, 2025, in the Supreme Court of Victoria at Morwell. Over 9 weeks, jurors heard from more than 50 witnesses, including toxicologists, forensic botanists, and digital experts. They saw over 120 pieces of evidence, from the dehydrator to photographs to GPS records. The prosecution argued that Erin had meticulously planned to poison her former in-laws and their relatives. They presented the dehydrator as proof she had processed the mushrooms herself, highlighted the individually plated Wellingtons, and underscored her deliberate lies and attempts to erase evidence. They suggested that while her exact motive was unclear, the act was calculated and premeditated. Erin took the stand on June 2, 2025. She described her struggles with weight, her feelings of rejection by Simon's family, and her history of anxiety and insecurity. She claimed the poisoning was a tragic accident, saying the mushrooms had been purchased from local shops and that she panicked after realizing her guests had fallen ill. She admitted to lying about certain things, like owning the dehydrator and foraging, but insisted she never meant to hurt anyone. The jury wasn't convinced. On July 7, 2025, after 6 days of deliberation, they found Erin Patterson guilty of 3 counts of murder for the deaths of Dawn and Gail Patterson and Heather Wilkinson, and 1 count of attempted murder for the near-fatal poisoning of Ian Wilkinson. She awaits sentencing, but she is expected to receive life in prison, likely with a non-parole period of around 30 years. In the aftermath, Ian Wilkinson, the sole survivor, returned to his ministry at the Corumbra Baptist Church, where he has spoken about survival, forgiveness, and the fragility of life. The case has captivated Australia, spawning extensive media coverage, podcasts, and even satirical cultural references, all while leaving a community grappling with the horror that unfolded at a seemingly ordinary family lunch. What makes this story so chilling isn't just the crime itself, it's how ordinary it looked. A woman who grew up in a quiet Melbourne suburb. A marriage marked by faith, tension, and distance. A family lunch, prepared with care in a peaceful town. And yet, beneath all of that, there were choices, lies, and evidence that turned a simple meal into a lethal trap. 3 people lost their lives, 1 barely survived, And the question that still haunts many isn't just how it happened, but why. Sometimes the darkest stories don't happen in dark alleys or shadowy forests. Sometimes they happen around a dinner table with people you trust. And that's the end of this story. Sometimes horror doesn't come with a warning. It arrives dressed as something ordinary, like a meal, a visit, or a familiar face. If you made it this far, thanks for spending some time with me in the dark. If you want more true stories like this, unbelievable, unsettling, but all 100% real, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. I drop new stories just like this all the time, so stay curious and stay careful. We'll see you in the next one.